Hey Rybot, interesting video as usual. Um, I posted a comment and I wanted to kind of clear up what I'm talking about, saying that life is basically um, the ability to replicate or reproduce oneself. Um, I think neglects something important, which is the sense that self-production rather than self-replication is logically prior. um, or is first in the sense that you've got to have a living organism that produces itself before you can have an organism that reproduces itself. So the essence of life is self-production, not reproduction. Reproduction comes after there is already self-production. And this is, why I prefer autopoiesis as the definition of life. And autopoiesis is, a Greek word for self-creation or self-production. And while we could talk about the organism as a whole being an emergent property of its parts, from my point of view, it's more than just an epistemic emergence. It's not just that it appears to be functioning as a whole, and really it's just a machine controlled by its parts. I think it actually does function as a whole. Um, the emergence is ontological, in other words. The whole has causal influence over the parts. Not that the parts aren't also in a causal relationship with the whole. Um, there are whole to part causes and part to whole causes, and they work in concert with one another. And this is another distinguishing feature of a living organism. Um, it has various parts, various organs, but they work together to produce the cell as a whole and themselves. And so, the purpose of any organ in particular won't be found in that organ alone. It's only found in its relationship to the other organs and its relationship to the whole cell, to the whole organism. Um, so, I don't think we can understand any organic life form in a purely mechanical way, because there's a circular causality that emerges. And it's not just, again, a lack of our ability to understand the circular causality. It's it's present in the organism itself, in the sense that the organism, there is something it is like to be this organism. That's what emerges, just as it emerges in you and I. There is a sense of wholeness that isn't completely in charge of the operation of the parts, but the parts work in concert in order for the whole to arise, and then the whole is able to influence the parts, just as the parts obviously influence the whole. So there's a reciprocal relationship there. Um, Basically, I'm an animist. I think if we define life as autopoiesis, as self-production, um, organizationally speaking, atoms and molecules become living because they are self-organizing entities, self-producing beings. So, um, atoms are a genus of life, and each particular element is a species, and these these species, these elements, have various ways of entering into relationship with other species, with other elements, to form molecules. And molecules have, as organisms, have characteristic ways of relating to other molecules, and um, the emergence is not only an apparent thing. When molecules enter into the society or the community that gives rise to a living cell, um, that living cell now has its own sense of agency and being that wasn't present in any of the molecules, in particular, before it emerged as a whole cell. And so, my body is a society of cells, first of all, and each cell is a society of molecules, and each molecule is a society of atoms. Um, and then it goes on down the line, you know, possibly forever, where we are just bodies inside of bodies inside of bodies, and at each level that emerges, the level of my whole body as a single society, there is some sort of agency, but it's always an agency in relation to the agents that compose it, and also, you know, myself as a human being and in relation to other human beings in my larger society. And so we're always, there's always a conflict between the autonomy of my body as a whole, the autonomy of my body as a whole in relation to society and in relation to my individual cells. There's always that conflict, that tension, but that tension is in its own way the very essence of life, of survival. If there wasn't tension, if there wasn't a sense in which life is always lived on the edge, that there is the potential to die, then it wouldn't be living at all, right? Um, so, yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that. Oh, you also mentioned intelligence, but I won't even get into that. It's a whole nother ballgame. But yeah, thanks for listening. Take it easy.